So here I've got my app. Nothing's being output here. In fact, if I went over here and I ran this, I would find that I have an error because my component is not returning anything, even though I have a render method here. So I could return, and I could return my standard HR tag, and then I'll be back in business. But just realize if you want to put things on multiple lines, it's pretty common to do this and wrap this in parentheses. And also a common mistake that I sometimes make is putting a semicolon here. That doesn't work. It's this block that's going to end up getting transformed into a React create element. So this will also work. Now, let's talk about the need for routing in the sense that maybe we've got a couple of components here. So we're going to have a home component. And I'm going to keep this as simple as I can, actually, just putting this on one line. And I'll have another one about. Maybe we've got a couple of pages in our application. And what I'm going to do here, put in a div. And we'll just sort of pretend that our navigation is going to be a couple of links over here. So we'll put an A here, put another one here. Let's just take a look and see that we've got this text showing up. And what we could do here is keep track of the state of our application based upon what ends up getting clicked on here. So if we go over here, we could go to our constructor. And we'll go over here and we'll say super. And our state, we'll just track the view. And we'll have two possible views. We'll start out with our view being home. All right. And we could go over here. I'd just like to destructure this a little bit. And I'm getting this from my state. And just to see that that shows up here, let's actually just output our view here. So when we're using Babel, one of the things that we could end up doing here is that if we want to end up outputting something, you actually just could put it here as an expression. So just putting these braces here will end up outputting this. And again, if you wanted to see what this ends up translating to, you could always end up opening up Babel and taking this code here, putting this in here. And we'll see that what it'll end up doing here is it's just going to use this value and put it at the end. It's just going to put it as a child to these other elements. So you have this div, you have this link, and this also ends up getting added in. It's just a variable. So what we could do here is that we could just ask the question. We could say current, right? And we could say that the current thing that we're going to end up seeing by default will end up seeing the home page. And actually, let's actually do it this way. We'll go over here and we'll say, hey, look, if view is equal to home, let's say let current. If view is equal to home, we'll say current equals home. And we could go over here and we could say else if view is equal to about, current is about. And here, instead of actually having the string view, what we could end up doing here, it's probably going to want this to be in uppercase, but let's just check that real quick. So yeah, let's just switch this variable real quick. And let's make it current. And so here we're determining which view to end up showing. And we can see we have home here, But if we were to switch this, let's make this a little more readable by making this a lot bigger. Let's make this an H1. Make this an H1. So we've got home, and if this was about, we would end up saying about. But we want to keep track of which is which. So one of the things we could do here is that we could have a method here called setView. And we could pass what the view is here. And we could just tell our state, hey, this set state, whatever the view is. And on our home page, what we could do, and again, this is a little bit easier with JSX because we could put it right here in line. And you could take a look and see how that transfers with Babel. But right over here, we could say, well, what we want to do here is this set view to home. And on this link, we're going to go over here, and we're going to say this set view about. And again, you can see how this ends up getting transformed. These are just going to be props that end up getting sent here. We could even take this just to do a quick look with Babel. And if we do that, we'll see all this is doing is putting that second parameter here of the on-click in the props, which is something you've probably ended up doing before, but here it becomes a lot more readable. So let's take a look and see how this plays out. So we've got home, and if we click on about, we've got about. Let me actually get out of the mobile view here for a second. And that's fine. And you can be very happy with that, but there's one problem here, and it's pretty critical. And the problem is that if we wanted to send someone a link to the About page, we would have no way of doing it. So we're looking at this view, and we decide, boy, this is great. Let me send it to somebody, and they would end up getting a link. And no matter what we did, it would always be home. So the problem is we need to have some way of marking in the browser what view somebody is on. So we would be able to do that. And one of the ways we can end up doing that is we could do that by using the hash on the address bar to determine what view the user is on.